On today's show, the Hawks have now won back-to-back games, and this time it was an impressive home win, a rarity this season for Atlanta. We'll get into how it unfolded and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2150 of the Locked On Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Friday evening here in late January. And today's show is sponsored by the folks at Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We'll be diving in today to what became a 110-103 win for the Hawks at home against the Phoenix Suns. The Hawks have now won 2 games in a row, which is a nice change of pace after a losing streak recently for Atlanta. Also, they have swept the Suns in a 2-game series, and the Suns, while coming into the season, were a little bit, projected to be on the downside of things in the NBA. They've been quite good this year, and the Hawks actually pulled off a mild upset in this game. They were home underdogs, according to our friends at FanDuel, by about 3 points. And the Suns, though, have not won in Atlanta since 2014. That's a long time. The Hawks have now won 12 straight games in Atlanta against the Suns. Just one of those things. For the longest time, the Hawks never won in San Antonio, for example. These things happen. They're kind of random in some respects, but the Hawks played well in this game on the whole. It wasn't perfect. They had some letdowns along the way. It was a back-and-forth game the entire way. Nobody was ever in full control of this one. Atlanta was up by as many as 11 points at this early in the third quarter, and then they had a pretty big meltdown to end the third quarter of this game. Then they rallied impressively, clamped down on defense, in particular in the fourth quarter, and came back and won by basically turning off the water for the Suns. In the last 4 minutes, the Suns did not score a single point, and that was the gap in this game, basically, from the Hawks kind of being a close one to being in control in the final seconds. So overall, I would call this a defense-first win for Atlanta. They were pretty good, not great, but okay to pretty good defensively for the first 3 quarters. Then they allowed 12 points in the fourth quarter. So overall, the game was quite strong defensively by the numbers for Atlanta, and that was backed up by the eye test in this one as well. And look, Suns fans wanted to tell me about this after the game like I didn't know about it. I was there. I covered it. I am aware Devin Booker got hurt after 3 quarters. That is notable for sure. It's good context. I would always give you the full context here. He's their best player, and that made it a little bit easier on the Hawks, unquestionably. It's not wrong to say that in the fourth quarter. With that said, the Hawks still played very well defensively in the fourth quarter, especially in the last 4 minutes, and that's what won the game for the Hawks in the end, was clamping down the way they did down the stretch. They had a 103 defensive rating in this game or so. That is an excellent figure for any game, any context, basically. That's the broad number, which is why I'm beginning with the defense. They won this game mostly on defense. That's the reality of the situation. They had one of their better defensive rebounding games in a while. They weren't dominant there, but they definitely didn't get beat. They were in control of the glass for the most part, which is a nice change. And they didn't foul much at all. In fact, the Hawks allowed 9 free throw attempts in this entire game. That is the season best for the Hawks by a wide margin. The previous mark for the number one game of the year for the Hawks defensively in free throw prevention was 16 attempts. So they had lapped the field basically and season best there. And I actually asked Quinn Snyder about that after the game, and he attributed it to kind of the help side defense arriving on time, being disciplined on shot fakes. Okongwu was asked about it after the game as well. He talked about, showing your hands basically. It's a lot of little things. The Hawks do foul, not a ton, but a decent amount this year. Quinn has said as many times, they don't have a traditional rim protector without Porzingis, and they have to play a different way because of that defensively. That leads to scrambling, pressure, and there's pros and cons to that. But today, the combination of walling off shot opportunities and then also not fouling led the Hawks to some really, really good results on defense. The Suns had below average shooting as well, 44% from the field and 32% from 3. Not a crazy bad game for the Suns shooting-wise, but certainly some good contests from Atlanta. Not a ton of turnover creation for a team that definitely relies on that a lot of the time. Only 13 takeaways for the Hawks in this game, but only 24 assists allowed. And Phoenix had a very ugly 82 offensive rating in the half court. So when the game slowed down, the Hawks did a really good job not giving up points. In fact, as we'll get to in a second, the Hawks' biggest Achilles heel in this game was their own ball security. But when the Hawks were not giving up runouts to Phoenix, they were really, really good defensively when they were able to set the defense basically along the way. And we'll get into it more later on, but Dyson Daniels and Alexander Walker essentially just torched Phoenix's perimeter offensive players, which was Colin Gillespie, Grayson Allen, and Dylan Brooks in crunch time. They just swallowed them up in a kind of a fun way to watch, honestly. Like, I love defense, and I really enjoy the way the Hawks kind of close this game out on that end of the floor, headlined by Dyson and Nikhil. But look, there was some help from Phoenix down the stretch, but defensively the Hawks were really good in this game. And that's one of the reasons why, they won this one. Honestly, it's probably the biggest reason. Offensively, they were not particularly impressive on the whole. This is a really good win for the Hawks, full stop. But they had actually below average offensive efficiency in this game. NBA.com numbers are now out. They had about a 109 offensive rating in this game. That's pretty bad in a game that you win. It wasn't disastrous, but what kept it from being disastrous was the Hawks made their three-pointers. They shot 13 of 26 from three. That's 50%. Obviously, that's a good number for three-point range, no matter what. I noted this on the pod last night. And by the way, if you missed it, most of that show is still very relevant right now, talking about trade stuff. The deadline is less than 2 weeks away, and I spent about 35 minutes talking about all kinds of deadline things and mailbag questions, and it's still relevant right now. So please listen and watch that podcast. But at the end of the show, I previewed Hawks Suns, and I mentioned that Phoenix has been really, really good at preventing three-point attempts this year. And that was definitely the case in this game, with the Hawks only getting up 26 the entire game. That's their second fewest three-point attempts of the entire season. Fortunately for Atlanta, they made them. 50% is 50%. That obviously matters. And they're 33 of 71 from three, which is like 45 or so percent over the last two games. And they needed all of them to get those two wins against Memphis and Phoenix. But Snyder talked post-game about like not having their eyes out enough on drives to set up threes and pass the ball out. He did not seem to be terribly thrilled with the way the offensive process worked in this game, but they were able to make a lot of threes, and that definitely helped to paper over some of the other problems. They were okay inside the arc. Half-court offense was not particularly good when it wasn't a three going in, but they did just enough. Now, I led this segment with the defense because the Hawks won the game. And if you're trying to react to a win, the Hawks defense was the lead factor in that win. If the Hawks had lost this game, I would have led with ball security being the number one factor because it was really, really rough in this game. Now, I will give the caveat right away. The Hawks were extremely frustrated, both players and coaches, with the officiating in this game. They thought, I think it was very clear that they thought it was inconsistent across the board. I agree with that. I think that Phoenix was allowed to give away with a lot of physicality in this game, and the Hawks were not given that same basically we're not afforded that on the other end of the floor at the same time. But with that said, you can't do what the Hawks did in this game, no matter what the officiating was. And I heard your complaints. I totally understand that. I'm kind of with you on that. There were still way too many errant passes and way too many instances of having a very loose handle with the ball for Atlanta in this game. And the results were really ugly because of that. So not to toot the podcast again from last night one more time, but the other factor, in addition to three-point attempts that I mentioned, was that Phoenix is excellent when it comes to turnover creation on defense. They're number 3 in the NBA in that metric. So it's not surprising that the Hawks might have some ball security concerns in this matchup. But they had 21 turnovers that led directly to 30 points for the Suns. That's really, really rough. The quote-unquote season high for Atlanta in points allowed off turnovers was 33. This is the second most of the year. To win this game is actually kind of remarkable when you give the ball away that many times with those kind of pretty dire results off the turnovers. But it was a pivot point for sure. Like, the Hawks were lucky it didn't burn them on the way to a loss in this game. But I thought it was funny. Pre-game, I actually asked Quinn about that havoc creation, and he turned it into almost a bigger picture answer about the possession battle, which, of course, I'm a fan of talking about a lot on the podcast. And ironically, after that answer pre-game, the Hawks lost the possession battle badly in this game. They were actually minus 10 or 11 in possessions, but they shot it well enough to overcome that. So that's always the caveat. Like, hey, you're better off. You're going to win a lot more games if you win on the margins, but it's not a guarantee. And the Hawks today were why. They shot the ball better from 2-point range and 3-point range than Phoenix, and that overcame the possession gap because, look, the ball security was bad. And not to pour cold water on this entire performance, I want to be clear one more time. This is a very, very good win, a mild upset win against a team that's been good all year long. That's the top line thought for sure. I'm a little bit concerned with the ball security on the whole. So Atlanta came into the night tonight 13th in the NBA in turnover rate this year. That's totally fine. Like league average, not a huge concern. But if you remove the 280 minutes that Trae Young played this year to more accurately reflect the current roster, which does not have Trae on it, and only took the non-Trae minutes in ball security, they would be 22nd in the league coming into the night. And then it gets worse after today. It hasn't updated yet in the numbers. I'm going to guess it's 23rd, 24th, 25th, something like that. That's not great. So it's something to keep an eye on. I'm not panicking about it, but one of the questions about this team is like, can they score enough? And it's harder when you're turning the ball over that much. So just note that for something moving forward. It didn't bite them tonight. That's important. But I like to give the whole picture and the process stuff to forecast the future. And ball security is going to be important moving forward. But hey, on the bright side, in that same category, they only had 3 turnovers in the fourth quarter. And that ended up being very big because the Hawks were down by 7 going into the fourth quarter. And they played great defense. And they stopped turning the ball over in the fourth. And they managed to figure it out when lights got bright. And they won this one. So I know that Phoenix won't get the respect of a team that has their record normally because they were not supposed to be good this year, and I totally understand that, but they have been good this season, and the Hawks were, again, underdogs in this game and came out and really kind of grinded one out in impressive fashion. And look, at kind of a rare home win. Like the Hawks, I've been saying for a while, like I understand the home numbers are not very good. You still want to be at home more than you're on the road, no matter what. That everyone will tell you that. And winning a game at home that you were not, quote unquote, supposed to win is a nice feeling. So no guarantees. The Hawks play again on Monday at home in a game that they are playing a much more inferior opponent. You got to win that one as well. But a nice step forward and a little bit closer to 500 to try to erase some of the net losses that had happened earlier on this year of 2026. So overall, a really good fun Friday night for Atlanta. And in a second, I'll dive into more detail on this game, how it unfolded, crunch time, observations, rotations, and more. And it's coming up in just one moment. Basketball is here. It's nothing like actually being in the building for a big-time game. The energy, the crowd, the first big run gets everybody excited and on their feet in the building. Fans want to be in the building for those moments, and they're always stuck actually refreshing screens or guessing what kind of tickets they're actually going to get or what they're actually going to cost along the way. That's where the Gametime app comes into play. At Gametime, they give the fans the advantage back, making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without any of the guesswork. Browsing the app at Gametime is straightforward and intuitive. You can find tickets in just a few taps of your screen. You can see the actual views from your seats before you actually buy the tickets, which makes things better and kind of allow you to be more confident in the process. And prices include fees up front, so the total is very clear from the start of the process. And Gametime is also featuring zone deals right now. Help you unlock great seats, even better values, whether it's an NBA game or a baseball game, football game, or another live event like theater or a concert. Everything is right there in one place. Take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON-NBA. Locked on NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today and get in on the action. All right, thank you as always. Make Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. If you ever want to go ad-free, you can do so now by joining the Everydayer Club at Locked On Hawks. Go to lockedonhawks.supercast.com to learn more. And before I dive into the game flow, I do want to note a unfortunate subplot quickly that I just learned of during the mini break there. The Pacers won in Oklahoma City tonight, which is a little bit strange. They're coming to town on Monday. That's not actually what I was going to lead with. That was a crazy result. Unfortunately, the more direct result that impacts the Hawks was that the Pelicans won on the road in Memphis. Not ideal, not dire. They're still been bad this year, but a substandard result there on the other side of things. Anyway, back to the game. The Hawks shot the ball well the entire game, honestly. They had 19 points in the first 5.5 minutes of the game. They hit the first three of the first four threes in this one. And ironically, the defensive side of the floor was a little bit shaky to begin the game. They allowed a second chance three early on, a couple of blow-by layups that they gave up early on that were kind of frustrating, I would say. They had a little bit of a lull offensively. They had scored 4 points in about 5 minutes in the first quarter. They kind of cooled off from a shooting perspective, and then actually gave up a 17-6 run to Phoenix late in the first quarter, with Grayson Allen kind of going a little bit nuts late in the first quarter. And the Hawks were up by 7 at one point and then went down by 4 at the end of the first. Rotationally, no big surprises for Atlanta. If you followed the game on Wednesday, you will note the debut of Christian Koloko in that one. He was actually the backup center again tonight. In fact, by my count, the Hawks played the entire 48 minutes with either Okongwu or Koloko at center. So there was no Mo Gay at center in this game. Mo did play a little bit, 9 minutes, but no Asa Newell, and they had Koloko basically in the firm backup center role. Not a surprise to me, nor was that like something I'm troubled by. I thought he was okay. He was fine. He didn't like blow anybody away, 2 turnovers, all that stuff. But he's definitely, as I've said many times, he is a center, clearly, in a way that Mo kind of isn't, and that Asa Newell definitely isn't. So there's that. Vit Krejci came in as the 10th man after Kennard came in, but Vit only played 5 minutes. That was a clear delineation. Kennard was definitely the kind of 7th man in this one, and then it was a smattering of Koloko, Gay, and Vit off the bench. They had, by the way, they had Vit guarding Grayson Allen for a while in the second quarter, which is kind of a frustrating thing because Booker and Jalen Green were off the court, and Dyson was on the court. So they had Dyson guarding Gillespie and Vit on Allen, which I didn't understand at all. Anyway, didn't bite them. Just want to at least note that in real time. The Hawks shot it great in the second quarter to begin things. Kennard hit a couple threes. They made 7 of their first 9 shots. They went up by 8 in the middle of the quarter. They had a little bit of a stumble late in the half, but then had an 8-0 run in the last 60 seconds to go up by 5 at halftime. And McCollum had a big end of the half with 16 points in the first half. And defensively, it was a little bit shaky, but the Hawks actually were 8 of 13 from 3 in the first half, which was important. Then they had kind of a weird third quarter. It started well on the bright side. They scored the first 6 points and went up by 11. That was their biggest lead of the entire game. And they went into a timeout. And I was like, all right, the Hawks are probably going to be in pretty decent shape here. And then they allowed basically their worst stretch of the game by a wide margin. First, it was a 20-6 run by Phoenix to erase the entire lead and more. Ball security was a disaster at that period of time. Atlanta had 7 turnovers in about 8 minutes. And by the way, even had some plays beyond that were deflected and scuttled possessions. Even if they weren't turnovers, it was just basically totally, they couldn't take care of the ball. That was the long and short of it in the third quarter. And after going up by 11 points, the rest of the quarter was 29-11 in favor of Phoenix with 9 giveaways and 7 of 21 shooting. So that combination is really rough. You shoot that poorly and then turn them all over that often, you're going to lose the quarter by a lot. They did lose. Booker did the Suns late in the third quarter, but overall it was a pretty disastrous period for Atlanta. They lost it by 12 points and honestly felt worse than that. On the bright side, the fourth quarter was much better. So immediately it was a 10-3 run by the Hawks to tie the game on a 3 by Okongwu. And it flat out a little bit, and then the Hawks took their first lead in a while when Jalen got going a little bit in the fourth quarter. He was very, very productive down the stretch of this game. I believe Jalen had 12 points, 5 rebounds in the fourth quarter alone. He was 5-8 from the floor and very assertive in a good way for Atlanta. I won't do the entire play-by-play late, but after a timeout by Quinn with the Hawks up by 1, kind of mid-quarter, there was a pretty crazy light blocking foul called on Jalen Johnson. It wasn't in the bonus yet, but that was one where the whole Hawks bench was losing their minds. But that was the first of many clamp down stops from the Hawks, with Nikhil basically swallowing up Colin Gillespie and for all to see at that point. Then McConnell got to the line, split a pair of free throws. Then they got a stop again on Royce O'Neal. Then Jalen got to the rim, beat Grayson Allen. Then Dyson totally stonewalled Dylan Brooks with the Hawks up by 4 for a bad miss. They had a really bad possession after that, to be fair. Almost a shot clock violation. Jalen kind of had to heave one up, and then he missed. But they got to stop again. They ran an ISO for McCollum after that I did not like at all. He missed that shot, but then they got a 5th straight stop on defense. And then Jalen got fouled after the rebound, made 1 of 2 to go up by 5 with 37 seconds to go. And it's all right, if you're going to stop here, you basically win the game. And Phoenix calls timeout, and Grayson Allen kind of forces a 3 and misses it for a 6th straight stop for Atlanta. And that basically ended the game. There was one more foul. The Hawks made it. They got another stop, 7 in a row. And the Suns did not score a point for the final 4 minutes of the game. And yeah, there's a little bit of variance there. But if you watch the plays back, my friend John Hollinger of The Athletic said this on Blue Sky, where he was like, I'm not sure the Suns got a good shot in the last 6 minutes. And I've done the charting. The Suns did not get a quality look in the final 4 minutes. Yeah, you can always make a somewhat bad shot. But 4 minutes, 7 possessions, not one good look for Phoenix, which is, for me, the lion's share of the credit goes to Dyson and Nikhil, but it was also a total team effort. I didn't love that they went back to CJ, but I thought his defense was actually better in this game than it had been previously, but they just turned the water off. And yeah, it was, one more time, easier without Booker. I get that. But the Hawks played really well defensively. Execution-wise, they rebounded ball very well, which is always a Hawks question mark. Second chance opportunities were not really there down the stretch. And while they weren't great on offense in the fourth quarter, like they were fine on offense, but they weren't like fantastic. And to win a quarter by 14 points when you're not great on offense is a credit to the defense. So impressive. Fun to watch if you're a sicko like me on defense. And I'll give you a number that I'll probably reference one more time later in the show. Dyson Daniels was a plus 22 in 37 minutes in a game the Hawks won by 7. So Dyson was really excellent in this one, and he was a big part of the factor. But obviously, Jalen and Okongwu had bigger numbers, but a lot of good stuff across the board for the Hawks. In fact, I will tease that in a second, talk about how the individual players performed in this game, plus a quick look at what's to come for Atlanta, and it's coming up in just one moment. Fridays feel different in their basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better right now on Friday nights before the actual basketball gets going. FanDuel is giving fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action actually begins. Opening the FanDuel app on Friday nights during Happy Hour always puts something new to the table when it comes to boosts or bonuses or surprises. It's so easy to check out all the specials before tip-off and actually make a move before the window closes on you. Happy Hour also adds a little bit of extra energy to your Friday night basketball routine, and the timing is absolutely perfect. It's right before the games start, right before the weekend gets underway, and it's Friday between 6 and 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. It's appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour, plus FanDuel sells offerings across the board when it comes to live lines, pregame lines, a full suite of offerings on different sports when it comes to football or baseball, hockey, college sports across the board, golf, tennis, soccer, auto racing, MMA, boxing, and so much more. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little bit of basketball, a little bit of action, and a little bit of Friday energy as well at FanDuel. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, and to the individual stuff in this game, 10 guys appeared for Atlanta, a couple of DNPs, Asa Newell and Keaton Wallace. The rest of the guys were either injured, like Porzingis and Richeche, or in the G League, like Ray Dennis, Nikola Juricic, and Caleb Houston. For those asking, the reevaluation timeline on Richeche and Porzingis is around approximately Monday, so we'll see how that affects things as soon as Monday's game. But for now, those guys were still out tonight. Vit Krejci played 5 minutes, didn't score, didn't actually take a shot at all, had an assist and a foul. I'm okay with Vit being the odd man out, or with the odd man sort of out on the perimeter. I think both Kispert and Kennard are playing better than Vit is right now. Vit had a great start to the season. He has cooled off on offense, and then defensively, he's a little bit too frail at times. So I think Kispert coming in has maybe Wally pipped Vit to some degree, but no huge issue there. Moge was a little bit quiet in this one, had 1 point, 3 rebounds, and an assist. He did have that assist, by the way, was a really good decision by Mo. Offensively, his decision-making is not always spot on, but he actually had a good, honestly, wide open look from 3. But instead of shooting it, he flipped it to Kennard, who was also open, and Kennard has a much better chance to make that shot than Mo does. That was the right decision by Mo that kind of led to 3 points. But he was okay defensively, like did his job for the most part. But we have seen now 2 games in a row, they preferred to go with the kind of more natural center in Koloko behind Okongwu, and I'm totally fine with that, honestly. Luke Kennard, 23 minutes, 9 points, 3-4 from 3, 6 rebounds, 4 assists. I thought Luke was really good in this game, had a steal, 2 turnovers, certainly, but I thought he was very solid, played with confidence, and I think he's been really overall like quite good for like a month plus now. So that's nice to see for the Hawks, getting some value from Kennard. Koloko, 12 minutes, 2 points, 2 fouls, a rebound, 2 blocks, 2 turnovers. Offensively, he's no great shakes, but certainly he is their best like pure center drop rim protector that's available right now. And that's nice to see. A couple nice kind of highlight blocks from him, and just did his job. Like he's not going to be flashy at all, hit the big 3 on Wednesday. That didn't happen tonight, but I thought he was fine and gave the Hawks a little bit of extra insurance on the back line. And then McCollum played 30 minutes off the bench, 21 points, 15 shots, 4 rebounds, no assists for CJ, 2 turnovers. He's still a little bit aggressive with the shot selection. I think no assists. There's some lineups right now. If the Hawks are playing McCollum and Alexander Walker together, the passing is just not there with that group. I love Nikhil. Nikhil's biggest offensive weakness is his passing, and McCollum isn't much better, if at all. So that's a little bit of a question, but I thought CJ gave him good minutes overall, made a bunch of shots late in the first half that were big, and was under control, at least offensively, in this one. Kispert started this game again, which is totally fine with me. 8 points, 3 rebounds, an assist for Corey, 15 minutes. Didn't play very much. I think the Hawks have shown a clear lean towards starting someone else, usually going to be Kispert now, it seems like, at the 3, and then closing with McCollum. That's their plan right now. We'll see if that changes when Ricochet and or KP come back. But right now, that's been what they've done basically every game, is they've started someone else at the 3, kind of nominally at the 3, and then close with 3 guards, Dyson, Nikhil, and TJ. So there you go. Alexander Walker was just fine in this game. 13 points, did have 5 turnovers. That's probably too many for him. 2 of 7 from 2, 2 of 5 from 3. Didn't shoot it well in this game. 3 assists, 0 rebounds, 2 steals. I would have said it was a pretty meh to below average, kind of shaky bad game from Nikhil until the fourth quarter. And then he played really good defense, and that was kind of pushed things up in a more positive direction. But he was just fine. He wasn't particularly good, but he was fine. Dyson had a nice game quietly. So 8 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, only 1 turnover, actually 0 steals, which is a rarity for Dyson. But he was plus 22 in 37 minutes. So Dyson played 37 minutes. In the 11 minutes he didn't play, the Hawks were minus 15. And that felt indicative to me. The offense, especially the turnovers, skyrocketed with Dyson off the floor. And I know he's not a traditional quote-unquote point guard, but he is their best decision maker on the perimeter right now. He's a good passer. He doesn't turn the ball over very much, generally speaking. And yeah, shooting's limited, I get that. But I think Dyson was a kind of skeleton key in this one on offense and defense. So he was really good. He really, really, really destroyed Brooks late in the game, which was kind of funny to watch. By the way, Dylan Brooks, shouts to you. 11 points, 18 shots. It was a Dylan Brooks game through and through. But Dyson was excellent in this one, even if it was kind of quiet by the stats. Okongwu was really good. 25 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, and 2 steals for Onyeka. He hit 3 threes. And by the way, Onyeka is now the franchise record holder for most threes in a season by a center, passing Al Horford. And there are 35 games left. So he's going to shatter that record. He's been shooting really well. Somebody asked me during the game tonight, like, what is a projection that I think is reasonable for Okongwu 3-point shooting? And I said, like, what he's done so far this year, which is essentially shoot like 36% on pretty good volume from 3. Like, he is a real shooter at this point, folks. It's not fake. He's a bomber. It's not like the prettiest shot in the world, but it goes in. And I think that the Hawks like it. So does he. He shot it well. He played well. He fished around the rim well. And he did a good job defensively on Mark Williams, I thought, overall. So it was a good game overall for Onyeka in a good spot. And then Jalen Johnson was quite good. 23 points, 18 rebounds, 9 assists. Did have 5 giveaways. That's a little bit too many, but nothing disastrous for him individually. Plus 15. He was 9 of 15 on 2s, 1 of 3 from 3. Jalen was already leading the NBA in defensive rebounds, and he had 15 of them in this game. So that's going to be even more so to his advantage. And 39 minutes for Jalen. Essentially, I believe it was only Mo at backup 4 in this one as well. So it was very linear. A lot of times this season, especially in the non-Porzingis games, it's been like kind of a jumble in the front court. But today, by my count, all 48 minutes at center were Okongwu or Koloko, and all 48 minutes at the 4 were Johnson or Mo Gay. So interesting kind of linear progression there. But I thought Jalen was awesome. And one of his better defensive games recently. Still has the occasional hiccup with attentiveness on like a backdoor cut or execution wise, but he was good on some islands in this one. I think he's been generally better there anyway. When he's kind of forced to guard one-on-one, he's been pretty solid there, generally speaking, this year. But I thought he was really good in this one. It was a star game from him, and well-rounded and important in a victory. So, headliner from this game, one more time, just a very, very solid, good road win that wasn't perfect. They had to grind it out, but they went and got it done. And that's the kind of game this year that's like not been won by the Hawks. Like having to come back in the fourth quarter, down 7, and they just did it. So rock solid stuff and encouraging for the future. From here, they host the Pacers on Monday. So it's interesting in that the weather is a question mark, I'll say, across the entire country. And a lot of that's the Southeast over the weekend. People are asking me, like, will the Hawks play on Monday? I don't know the answer to that. Obviously, I know some schools are out. I'm going to assume they will play the game more likely than not on Monday night. The Pacers are 11-35 this season. I didn't see any of this game, but I am legitimately shocked that they beat the Thunder tonight. Indiana is now 3-19 on the road. That's just a wild result. But as a reminder, something I say all the time on the podcast, that even at home against one of the worst teams in the league, nothing is assured. And the Thunder lost to the Pacers tonight. If you needed a reminder of that, see that game, generally speaking. With that said, the Hawks will be favored in the game. They should be favored in the game. If they play well, they will win. We'll see if those things happen, but an opportunity to string another win together for the Hawks. And while the schedule is, as I've been saying for a couple weeks now, pretty favorable from now on, they do have a tough stretch right after this Indiana game. They have to go to Boston and then play Houston after that. So even more emphasis on that Indiana game on Monday. So circle that one. If weather allows, I might have a show between now and the game on Monday, but regardless of what happens between now and then, I will at the very least have a podcast after Hawks Pacers on Monday evening. So please stay tuned for that. Please subscribe to Locked on Hawks, anywhere you reach your podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, etc. Follow the show on X/Twitter at Locked on Hawks. Follow me on Twitter and on Blue Sky at BT Rowland. And then I'm also on my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks. It can be found at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody, enjoy your weekend and a nice Hawks victory on this Friday night. And we'll see you all next time.